All right, welcome back to part two of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. We want to jump straight into the NBA news. LeBron James made his return last night as the Los Angeles Lakers took on the Utah Jazz. Um, he looked pretty much like he was in facilitator mode last night. He was one of those times where it looked like he had a little bit of rust on him, but he looked like he was also trying to get his teammates involved. The Lakers did ultimately win this game 140-126. LeBron finished the game with 11 points and 12 assists. I look at this now as a game where he knows that he can dictate the flow of the game. And I think that this is a piece that the Lakers needed. Whether people were saying, oh, they didn't need him to start off the season, they need LeBron James. Let's not even play ourselves. I know DeAndre Ayton's been playing great this year. I love what Luka's been doing to start off the year, but they're a more complete team with LeBron James at the helm. Now, the only problem I have going forward is how much are they going to rely on LeBron going forward? LeBron being what is it, X 41 or four? Is he 41 years old? Correct.
He is 40. He will be 41 at the end of next month.
Sorry, Bron. I didn't mean to put that extra, age on you right now, but a almost 41-year-old LeBron cannot be your best player. That is my whole point, and nor should he be at this point in his career. I think that he is going to have to learn to play in a different way than he's been playing, pretty much his whole career. I think the days of the 25 plus per game scoring, I think that's definitely over, which is not a bad thing when you have a superstar like Luka Doncic and you have guys that can go get their own shot. I think this is more time now. LeBron can actually look to facilitate more and hand more of the reins over to Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, DeAndre Ayton. Let those guys be the focal point of your offense. And you just worry about, making clutch shots, key plays when it matters. He's going to have to start getting his in spurts. I want to know what all did you all make of his performance in the first game of his season?
So for me, I love how he played. I look, he's not gonna have 11 points every single night. I expect him to be somewhere between 18 to maybe 20 a night. But if I can get that consistently and efficiently, I can live with that. I love how he ran the floor game last night. How he honestly just came in and he just tried to fit in because the biggest thing we know about LeBron is on every other team he's been to, he's literally been the system. So he saw in these guys' first 14 games, 10-4 so far. Luka is the man in LA now, and we knew that already coming into the season. He's wanted to give the reins to somebody for quite some time, though. He wanted to give these reins to Anthony Davis, but he could not stay healthy enough, and his offensive game at times was just not consistent enough to be able to be that guy. I do feel like this about it, though, KB. As pleased as I was with the game that he played, there's still a glaring hole about this team. And Dev, I was talking about this in our group chat last night. They need to go out and get another 3-and-D guy, especially somebody who can work on the defensive side of the basketball. I don't know who that guy is, but they need somebody who has a skill set similar to that of a Lou Dort. They need somebody like that because when you face these teams like Denver, Houston, OKC, you need to be able to match fire with fire because the thing is, they're going to put their best defenders on Luka, and it's not going to stop Luka. He might still even have 30, but how hard is he going to have to work to get that 30? How many more shots is he going to have to put up for that 30? And that's going to slow down the pace of the offense.
Who are you looking like? I know you said that you don't have an idea right now. Are you looking at more of a guard? Are you looking at more of a wing player? Potentially for this 3-and-D spot, like what type of player would most benefit the Lakers at this point?
If it's going to be a guard, it has to be a two guard. If it's not a two guard, it has to be a power forward or a small forward. Dev, what's your thoughts on just LeBron returning to play last night, and also the fact that there was history made in the process of this? He's the first player in the history of the league to play in 23 seasons.
That speaks to his longevity. The fact that he's still playing at all at 40, going into 41 at the level that he's playing at that age is crazy. But I do agree with y'all that at some point, like Father Time is undefeated. Like as much as he has kind of managed to make it this long, at some point that clock is gonna run out. And you cannot, like y'all said, he cannot be the best player on this team. Like he can't. It's not good for anybody involved if LeBron is the best player on this Lakers team right now. Like this has to go through Luka, obviously, and I think they know that, and I think LeBron knows that. And yeah, but I do think the Lakers are, like you said, there's something missing. I think it probably is a 3-and-D guy. You're gonna have some guys out there. I mean, I know it's probably not gonna happen, but I mean, Jonathan Kuminga is always gonna be somebody that people are gonna float that name out there. Like there are players out there that probably will be available later in the season as like some things develop and some injuries pile up and things like that. But I do think that yeah, there is a pecking order in the Western Conference right now for sure that the Lakers are going to have to carve their way through.
But those are the only three teams that I'm concerned about. Everybody else is kind of a pick 'em because you look at how deep Denver is on both sides of the ball. You look at how deep Houston can go on both sides of the ball. I mean, just for example, if Houston and Lakers get put in a series with each other, we know who's going to be guarding Luka. They're going to put him in Thompson on him, and like I said, he's going to neutralize him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. You're gonna make them work for every basket.
it'll make them work for it all. And same with OKC, like they could put a number of guys. You could throw Caruso, you could throw Dort, you could throw
Case and
Case
Wallace.
and Wallace. It's a lot of people, and even the Timberwolves. Really, like they might not win a championship, but I mean, they're a matchup issue we saw last year. With much, I mean, it's a couple of different guys, but there's some teams in the West that would present some matchup issues if they matched up with them.
The thing that kind of like at the time when he was brought to the Lakers, he was supposed the guy who I was looking at supposed to be the 3-and-D, but not really more so an offensive threat. It was supposed to be Jared Vanderbilt. But just his size alone and versatility to switch is supposed to have been something that was supposed to help the Lakers out. But his offensive game is more of a reason why he's more of a liability because you can't put him out there. He has no offensive threat. He's no offensive threat anytime he's on the floor. And yeah, he can play defense, but how comfortable would you be having him on the floor, you know, for extended minutes, especially in a playoff series? That is reason why I felt like, if they're gonna get someone, I would look at more of a two guard to go in, especially to play like, in those minutes where it may be like LeBron's getting his rest, Luka might be getting his rest, and then you have Austin Reeves running like maybe the point. Then having a 3-and-D guard, you have to have someone on that second unit that can guard their best player because I'm pretty sure that you got times where OKC is going to have, Shea come out there against other teams' second unit just to kind of when they need a jolt. So I just honestly, I do think that there is something extra that the Lakers need. Hopefully, we'll see if they, look into the buyout markets, but I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go at this point.
It's going to be interesting to see. Your guy Jalen Johnson is steadily rising up the ranks throughout the Eastern Conference in the NBA. He was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, rightfully so. He had a great week last week. Jokic was named the Western Conference Player of the Week. And the Hawks have been rolling without Trae Young, but they came up short against the Detroit Pistons, the Eastern Conference leading Detroit Pistons, on Tuesday night. So, fellas, I'm going to just go ahead and ask the question. Do you think the Pistons are for real, or do you think that this is just a nice start to the regular season for them so far? Do you think what they're doing is sustainable?
Yeah, I think it is because we saw them ascend last year, even though they didn't win a playoff series against the Knicks, but they kind of made things difficult. Like the Pistons actually have like a good team now, and I think it's kind of hard for those of us who've watched them for the past 2 decades, or yeah, roughly 2 decades. It's like we all saw like oh, they won the titles in like the early 2000s with Billups and Wallace and all those guys, and but they really haven't done anything since then. And now they have started to kind of collect all that talent. Cade Cunningham is the real deal. Um, and Jalen Duren clearly can play ball. The only thing that scares me about the Pistons is I feel like they need some more scoring. It probably would be the only thing. Like I feel like the front court probably is a little like considering who you're up against in the Eastern Conference. When you look
I,
at
I want to throw something at you
yeah,
real quick though, because you said they need more scoring. I think more of that is on the way because Jaden Ivey hasn't played a single game this season yet as he recovers from his knee injury from a year ago.
oh
Eventually,
yeah.
he'll be back.
So yeah, once he gets back, I think it's on and popping. Like for real in the East because the East is really not that deep. I mean, who are you? Like Cleveland and the Knicks are probably the top two teams as long as Indiana and Boston are kind of going through their pains with their injuries. It's like Cleveland and the Knicks. I mean, Milwaukee, if it's not Giannis, you don't trust them. Um, the Hawks, I don't trust them even when Trae Young comes back. Like in the Eastern Conference, realistically, the Magic maybe, but like who are you really scared of in the Eastern Conference right now? Like besides Cleveland and the Knicks, like I said.
You brought up Cleveland and the Knicks. The thing is, I don't trust either one of them either. I need to see Cleveland do something when it actually matters. And when it comes down to the Knicks, I don't think Mike Brown is going to be able to have the same effect on that team that Tom Thibodeau did. And KB, I've been talking about that. It's like something is just different about this team this season, and it's not different in a good way. Because the thing is, if you gave Tom Thibodeau all this depth that you've given to Mike Brown in this roster, I have no doubt that they would be the favorites to represent the East in the finals this year. I got questions about them, and a lot of it has to do, honestly, with Karl Anthony Towns, too. He's not the same player that he was a year ago. And I don't know if that's injuries or if it's adapting to this new system under Mike Brown.
Yeah, he's not the same, but I'm gonna pivot back to Detroit, and the reason why I feel like they are real. I think the fact that they play such a physical brand of basketball. If you watch that first quarter, they were bullying the Hawks. Jalen Durant and Isaiah Stewart were literally playing like a bully style brand of basketball. That is a reason why I felt like that, and they're not only that brand of basketball, but they have depth. Like you said, Jaden Ivey's still not there. Tobias Harris is still not there. You still have, you basically were down two starters. Now, granted, the Hawks were down three starters with Ricochet, Porzingis, and also Trae Young not playing. So I do feel like that this landscape of the Eastern Conference is still yet to be seen because it is wide open. I don't feel like there's one dominant team. I do feel like that they're off to a dominant start, but I don't feel like there's one dominant team. Now, where I do feel like they're going to have problems with is the fact, like, I don't know if they have enough outside shooting. I do not feel like they have enough outside shooting right now. I feel like Cade, he's a threat from wherever he is on the court. But outside of Cade, are you going to rely that heavy on Tobias Harris to make a majority of his threes in the game? And we know that this is one of the things where, like, if you're gonna live by the three ball, you gotta die by the three ball. I see them shoot a lot of threes, but I don't see them make it at a high percentage. I just don't see that being their style of basketball that Bickerstaff wants them to play.
So they
Now,
do have a marksman out there, though. They just haven't used him the way that we saw him
oh,
used.
you're speaking on Duncan Robinson?
Yes.
Oh, trust me, yeah, I was well equipped to his game last night. Now, I do look at him as being a marksman, but I don't look at them overall as a great 3-point shooting team, just given the personnel that they have on the floor. Um, like I said, I don't know what the Knicks are yet because when I knew they were with Thibodeau, I knew that they were physical. They were going to play defense. I knew what their identity was. I don't know what their identity right now is with Mike Brown. I don't know what Cleveland's identity is right now because I feel like Cleveland was going to come back to earth a little bit. I think that they had a great year last year, got off to a great start, but I felt like this is one of those years where they were going to come back to earth. I think the East is so wide open with so many injuries to key guys like Halliburton and Jason Tatum that is anybody's for the taking. I just don't feel like there's one team right now that stands out this early in the season other than Detroit. But like I said, I'm looking at Detroit's opening schedule. They didn't play that much competition. I don't want to take anything away from them, but the games that they were playing, they were supposed to win. These are games that, like, when you have bad teams, you're supposed to beat bad teams. You shouldn't let them hang around because while it may not be a problem with them hanging around now, come down to the playoffs, you don't want to give a team, false hope that they have a chance to play with you. So I'm looking at Detroit like, let's see where they are. Let's go into like late January. I want to see where they are at that point. Then that'll give me more of an assessment of where they're going, where their trajectory is. Like, are they going to be still this dominant, or are they going to come back to earth a little bit?
I think that's a good way to put it because I think we do have to remember that there are only 15 games into an 82 game season. And we've seen teams that have started out hot before and then ultimately end up not. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case with Detroit because we saw them take a leap. They were the one team that really gave the Knicks a push in the first round last year, too. We were like, is Detroit going to win this series? And it was a legitimate question. We'll have to wait to see what happens. But one thing I think that we all can agree on is no matter who wins the East anyway, you're just earning the right to go lose whoever wins the West because I don't think there's a single team in the Eastern Conference that can compete with the top four teams out in the West right now. And that does include the Lakers in that bunch that I just said. I don't think there's a single team out East that can compete with the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Rockets, or OKC right now. I just don't see it. But it's a long season. We'll have to see how things continue to gradually progress. One of those teams that I would have been mentioning about 2 weeks ago also would have been the San Antonio Spurs, but I think we got to put them on ice right now because Stephon Castle's out, Dylan Harper's out, Wemby's out. This is not going to be the same team while those guys are out. Hopefully they all recover and they come back. And Dev, you brought it up in our group chat too when that news dropped about Wemby. The only thing that's going to stop him is his health. And this is a legitimate concern because he is a big man. And they are the ones who are very prone to getting those leg injuries like calf strains and things like that. So hopefully he's able to shake back because it's been an exciting start to the season all the way around. And he's been a big part of it. Just where do you think San Antonio is now going to finish, KB?
So it's kind of hard to say because, like you said, with the injuries and the fact that there is so much talent in the Western Conference, I could see them honestly finishing anywhere from, for me, the highest I would give them is 4, the lowest I would give them is 7. And honestly, that all depends on the health of Wembyama. Like, if Wemby is healthy, I could honestly see them getting a top 4 seed. But if he is not healthy and he misses a significant amount of time, as well as the other pieces on this team, then I could see them possibly getting a 7 seed. The real question that I have is, with the emergence of Dylan Harper, what do you do with De'Aaron Fox? I've heard his name circulated in a lot of, trade rumors. And his name is going to be a name that's, you want to watch out for before the deadline even comes about because I feel like he would be one of those early, trade candidates because of the fact that, you have your point guard of the future, I feel like, in Dylan Harper. And De'Aaron Fox, while he's still an effective player, he's kind of like, you have a good problem because you want to be able to move him and add more pieces to your team. So I do think that the Spurs are in a very a very different situation than a lot of teams are because they offer a lot of packages that other teams cannot offer. I think that they can finish, yeah, I would still say anywhere from as high as 4, anywhere as low as 7. I think that's where they are.
Dev, where do you got them?
The Spurs are probably squarely in the middle for me, like 4 or 5. With Wemby help, with Wemby, if Wembanyama's healthy, I think even still that they're probably fourth or fifth best team, and that's only because, like you mentioned before, I would put OKC ahead of them. I would put, at least right now, I would put the Rockets ahead of them, and then I probably would put the
Would you put the Nuggets and the Lakers ahead of them
the
too?
Nuggets too. Yeah, the Nuggets. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Nuggets and
Okay.
the Lakers. I would not. The Lakers probably would be 5. They would be 4. If
Okay.
if if everybody's healthy. If everybody's
Okay.
healthy.
Yes. Okay. Very understandable.
Yeah. So yeah.
Fellas, we got to take it back out to the football field, this time in college. Um, the Longhorns came between the hedges on Saturday, and they got that work. KB, we've been wanting to see this UGA team all season long, and I feel like we're seeing it right at the right time. It is that time of the year. You want to start looking the way that they did on Saturday. They're now top 4 after defeating Texas 35-10. Texas is all but done in the college football playoff conversation now at this point. Your thoughts?
Man, the one takeaway that I had, the main takeaway I had from that game is every single time Texas and UGA match up, how Kirby Smart out coaches Sarkisian. Like, this has become one of those things where it almost feels like he's toying with them. Like, to score a touchdown and then kick an onside kick, that lets me know I don't respect what you have going on over there. Because literally, Sarkisian has no answer for Kirby Smart. He's running laps around him. And I think that Georgia did what Georgia was supposed to do. This is one of those dominant showings that showed everybody in the country, like, whoa, like Georgia still is who they are. Like, they are, no matter what. You had doubts about them all year because they have had games where they've been shaky. But Georgia is, when they need to be, they are still one of the most dominant football programs in the entire country. Texas, I felt like this was just, one of those things where it was a matter of time. I told you from the get-go, I was never sold on Arch Manning. I'm not even at this point sold on Sarkisian to win big games. I don't feel like this is a team that was, set up to be in the national championship or even in the college football playoff. So I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I want to give more praise to Georgia for the way that they dominated and they won a game that they desperately needed, but that was more so to put everyone back at ease and let them know that, UGA is still going to be a premier contender in the college football playoff. I think that right now, the only questions people want to know is, can Kirby beat Alabama? People still want to know, can he beat Alabama? That is something that people want to know as far as in the SEC championship because it's looking like they're on a collision course. Possibly, I don't know with this second loss that Alabama just suffered. I'm not sure how the standings look in the SEC West, but if that is the game that we are going to see, because I do believe right now Texas A&M would be the representative from the SEC East, if I'm not mistaken. Or are they in the West or the East?
They're in the West.
They're in the West. Okay,
Yeah.
so then it would be, set up for Georgia and Texas A&M, which,
And I don't think Texas A&M is ready for UGA.
I don't. But honestly, I'm I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it because that effort that they took on Saturday just to come back. Hey, they deserve to be there.
Yeah, you brought that up, so let's get into it. They were down 30-3 at halftime at home against South Carolina, and we were all kind of like, "What the hell is going on today?" And then they came all the way back. They won that game. Um, Something else also took place in that game. A Texas A&M cop shoving or running into some of the South Carolina players led to some insults being said by the cop. I don't know if the player said anything in return. He has been suspended, and I believe rightfully so. You cannot do what he did.
Yeah, no, that was real nasty. I saw that and I just immediately was just thinking about like how this interaction would have gone down if this wasn't on a football field with football players. Like if they'd have just been in some street clothes down in like a mall somewhere in College Station and this happened like this, like how would this have happened? Like what would the end result have been? Like would they have even suspended old boy? Like the only I feel like that was there was something in that that just looked good old boyish. I don't know how else to explain it. Like it just that didn't something about that interaction felt a little like I don't know. That was weird. Like I'm trying to be politically correct here, but y'all get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're trying to say. And this just goes to show there are like evil spirited people everywhere in any occupation, everywhere in the world. Honestly, he instigated that entire situation. He should never be allowed to work another football game ever. I think that like there were so many things that could have went wrong in that situation. But if you look at the video, he honestly initiated all the contact between himself and the players. And it didn't really need to happen because like you said, in a lot of different, venues, it would have been perceived completely different. And honestly, the worst thing that came out of that I had, thought about the other day was, what if this wasn't on video? What if this didn't get the national attention that it got? What would have been the outcome from that situation had there not been camera angles, seeing because this was after Nick Harbor had scored and they were checking on him. What would have been the outcome if there were no eyes on this? That is what we say that there is a problem in this country, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And I'm not going to go too far into it because I don't feel like this was, a situation where we should just, you know, shed light on certain things. But I think that this is one of those situations that show that it is a lot of evil in this world. And a lot of that evil comes from people that are sworn to protect and uphold the law. And so, honestly, I felt like, shout out to the South Carolina players for keeping their composure because we know what could happen if they were to act out of character, what narratives would have been painted. So, shout out to them. Yeah, I think this is a despicable act. Never should be able to work a game again.
I agree 100%. You brought up Alabama. They lost to Oklahoma on Saturday. We appreciate y'all, Sooners, because KB, you brought up if Alabama and Georgia, if Kirby can beat Alabama, maybe we don't find that out until next year because that really did hurt their college football playoff chances. I ultimately think as long as they win out, they'll still get in somehow in those top 12. But we'll have to see how it ends up shaking out. But Oklahoma they look for real. And I mean that in terms of looking like a real SEC team. They are physical, they are big up front, but I don't find it surprising either, guys. Brent Venables came from Clemson. And the last 5 years of the past decade, Clemson was specifically building their teams so that they would be able to go out and compete and ultimately beat Alabama. because that's what we saw for the last half of the 2010s. Clemson and Bama exchanging being on top. So it doesn't surprise me that he knows how to come in and build those SEC teams up the way that he's built them at Oklahoma.
Even if it did take him a lot longer than I thought it would, I agree. Like that was what I thought. This is what I thought Oklahoma would look like when he first got there. It just took, for whatever reason, it took him a little bit longer, and I guess maybe because the SEC is a tougher conference than at the time that he left it, the Big 12. But it it's kind of refreshing to see now. Like, because I thought he was a dead man walking. Like it felt like this year was make or break for Brent, and it still could be, because like if they fall apart at the end of the year and just suddenly don't do anything, maybe they do decide to move on from him. So I mean, he's not out of the water yet, but
I think he is for this year. I think he's done enough to at least save his job for at least one more year, even if they do fall all the way
right,
flat the rest of the
right,
way.
yeah. So, but yeah, like he's definitely improved enough to at least, yeah, like you said, to warrant that conversation.
Speaking of conversations, and this is one that's been dominating the college football headlines, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. I don't know what to make out of it at this point, fellas, because I think we're headed for a stare down between him and Ole Miss. Allegedly, there was an ultimatum that was given. That was he has until the Egg Bowl matchup against Mississippi State. They always play the Egg Bowl, them and Ole Miss, every year, the week of Thanksgiving, to let them know a decision. I feel like this about it, and I heard this today from Joel Klatt when he was on the Herd on FS1. If Lane Kiffin was going to stay at Ole Miss, he already would have signed his deal to stay there, or he already would have said he was staying. And KB, we talked about this a couple of weeks back too. There was a glaring red flag that was put out by Lane Kiffin a couple of weeks ago when he talked about wanting to see more fans show up and attend the Ole Miss games. That was a glaring red flag to me when he brought that up. And now I think he is all but gone out of there. I don't think LSU is going to be the place. I'm going to stick with the place I've been saying the entire time, and that is Gainesville, Florida. I think he will be the next head coach of the Florida Gators. There are rumors that he and his family have been down in Gainesville this week. I can't confirm that. I don't know that for a fact. But that is where I think he will ultimately end up. And I think it could end up being one of the biggest messes in college football, too, that we've ever seen. As Lane Kiffin accepts the Florida job and leaves Ole Miss to come to Florida and doesn't even coach them through the college football playoff. KB, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that whole ultimatum thing was the worst possible thing because I think he already had one foot out the door anyways, and all signs were leading to him going to the University of Florida. Especially after that, I want more fans to come to the games. Well, you look no further than the swamp. Like that is if you're looking for fan engagement, and even when Billy Napier was out there stinking it up for multiple seasons, they showed up still. So they have, a great culture at the University of Florida. No matter whether they're winning or losing, fans show up, they support their team. And I think this kind of is like one of those moves that it just kind of seems like the right move. Lane Kiffin to Florida just seems like it's the right time and the right move overall. So I do look at him to, if he does leave Ole Miss prior to the college football playoff, that will honestly surprise me just because of the success that he's had at the program this year. But it does look like it's leading to an ugly breakup. So I am waiting to see like how that story develops. But I would honestly, be surprised if he is not the next University of Florida head coach.
Dev, how do you
I'm
feel about it at this point?
Can we honestly be surprised? Like he, like anybody that's paid attention to Lane Kiffin's coaching career, like this is how it always kind of ends everywhere he's been. Like when you guys are saying, "Oh, this could be the biggest mess ever if he doesn't coach them through the playoff." I don't know if I would agree because I watched this man at Tennessee and you know they made the documentary about it, but like we all lived through it because we were old enough to remember. I mean, he was at Tennessee, had a good job, and just in the middle of the night walks off to USC when he and like they basically burned the campus down and are calling him a traitor. And then he goes to USC. Then he leaves, gets fired on the tarmac, and you know the whole Raiders disaster. Like this is Lane Kiffin. He can't help himself, and just because he'd been a little quiet because he was in Ole Miss, and it seemed like he's finally settled down. No, just give it some time. You know, Lane Kiffin is going Lane Kiffin like nobody else is Lane Kiffin before. Like this is who he is, and it's not nothing wrong with it because it's the business. It's the name of the business. I mean, Deion Sanders said it. You either get elevated or terminated as a coach. You know, that's just the business. Nobody, very few coaches walk out on their own unless you get a job. So, like, I mean, it's better to walk while you're hot than to get fired and kicked out. So, I get it, but this is not surprising at all if you paid attention to Lane Kiffin's career.
Something else that should be noted about all of this too is that it's already been reported by multiple folks who are viable sources that money is not the issue for Ole Miss in any of this. They have reportedly told Lane Kiffin that whatever it is you're offered, we'll match it. I just think he wants a change of scenery. And I ultimately think it's going to be Gainesville. I think he's coming to Florida. If LSU wasn't in such of a mess right now with the governor of Louisiana putting his 2 cents in on what he thinks they should do and things like that, I would have given them a better shot. I don't think he wants to go down there and be a part of that. I think he's coming to Florida. And I know that there have been rumors about him going to the pros too. I don't see that. I don't see Lane Kiffin's ego meshing well in the NFL. Fellas, you got any thoughts to close this out really quickly?
I don't see him going to the NFL either. It's certain coaches that I believe are more tailored for the college game. Lane Kiffin being one of them. I just don't see why, with the success that you've had in college football, why you would leave that. As enticing as the NFL is, I just don't see the benefit at this point for him to leave and go to the NFL. I think that he does need a change of scenery, and I don't think the money, like you said, I don't think the money was one of the factors in this decision making. I think there were other things that came into play. I think that might have been some behind the scenes discussions that were, made the relationship sour. But overall, I think that there is going to be a need for a change of scenery, which is kind of, consistent with Lane Kiffin, how he's been over the, course of his career as a coach in college football, bouncing around, never like, settling in one spot. That's kind of his MO at this point. So I think that, yeah, I think that he's almost as good as gone.
I think he wanted USC to be that spot for him, but like Dev said, he got
Ah,
fired on the tarmac.
yeah. He might need to just go ahead and let that chapter die.
It's a shame though with LSU if he doesn't ultimately end up going there because LSU is just such a like everything the drama aside with what's going on in the higher ups on the football field like everything presentation wise LSU would be such a cool place for Lane Kiffin like I think I think LSU as a cultural phenomenon like in the SEC like LSU is just so cool it's just something about LSU like when LSU is good it's just cool in college football when they're good. Like I think he would fit in well there. I think he would restore some of the feeling there that they've had there when they were winning championships and when they were on the top of college football. Like I think he not necessarily that he could bring them all the way up there, but he at least could give them that swagger that they haven't had in a couple of years.
Well, I expect him to come to Florida and do that because he's inheriting that roster that Billy Napier put together. That even though the coaching results weren't necessarily there on paper, he put a great roster together on paper. One other thing I want to make note of before we close the show out is congratulations to James Franklin. He is the new head coach at Virginia Tech University. I believe he's going to get that program back on track. And I think it could start as soon as next year. I'm not saying college football playoff national championship type of on track, but he can get them back to some form of consistency.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the ACC was probably the right move in the right conference to try to rebuild. Just because with the ACC like not being really dominant this year, I felt like this is a program that had a few good things going for them. I saw maybe two Virginia Tech games this year, and they looked like they just needed more of a direction. So I think that James Franklin landing with this program ultimately is a great move for him.
And I think also for you want to talk about fans that show up and support a team even when they're terrible, like Virginia Tech is that. Like that whole Enter Sandman thing that they do when they come in and the stadium's rocking, one of the best entrances in college football. And I think also James Franklin, for a lot of people that don't really know this, he already recruits that area, the Maryland and Virginia area. He has kind of made that his thing even when he was up at Penn State. A lot of his recruits come out of that out of those two states anyway, and like obviously the other places as well. But he kind of knows that area recruiting wise, so he's going to keep a lot of the. I think he can keep a lot of those recruits at home that otherwise would have left and gone other places. And also, I think a lot of people have forgotten how bad Penn State was when he first got there. Like they were a powerhouse for years, and then we all know what happened with Paterno and all that stuff. And then they were down, and Franklin came in there and made it to the point of where it is now. So I think he could do that at Virginia Tech because really, Clemson, I think they're done. And then Florida State is, I don't know what's going on with them. And Miami, you really can't trust them. So it's like really nobody truly in his way in the ACC to me. So,
And we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with Dabo Swinney as we approach the college football offseason, too, because I'm
yeah.
not so sure he'll be back at Clemson.
And Mike Norvell as well. He might be gone too.
All right, y'all, that's going to do it for this edition of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. Appreciate Dev joining us this evening. It's not the last time y'all going to see him. For X and KB, we're saying peace.
Peace.